All right, we're live.
Okay, so this is our chapters leaders meeting. We just had a town hall. The chapter leader who we're with right now is Anquan Nguyen and you reminded me a few minutes ago what your e-NABLE chapter name is, but I still haven't absorbed it.
Well, it's because it's very confusing. Our official Enable chapter is NorCal Enable, and
NorCal.
NorCal, like Northern California,
Yep.
NorCal Enable. And but the separate concept is a coalition, and I want to break that apart. Chapters are something we form as local areas so that you can act as a hub for people to, if anybody wants to come help you or learn how about Enable, word chapter. And there's I think the nice thing about Enable is the bar to become a chapter is not terribly high. You just have to establish that you have some utility in the community. But the concept of a coalition is a little bit different. The coalition, it's not a group who's building hands. A coalition, or it can be, it's a coalition of, I've decided that this group, Uganda, Vietnam, Guatemala, whatever, is something we're going to support, and we're going to act as a support group for that need. And it's not limited to just my chapter. Like anybody can be part of my coalition, but the coalition itself has an organizing body. And I think that's the kind of a key difference between coalition and chapter. So that's why it's confusing, John, and it's even confusing to me. But the idea
I
would
think
be, yeah, the NorCal Enable chapter is just, it's something kind of very enably. It's very, it's kind of this nice, unstructured but wonderful chaos where anybody can be a chapter, anybody can help anybody, and I love that. But the coalition, I think, requires more planning. It requires more kind of weekly meetings. It's actually like a group, and you can have multiple people from multiple chapters be in a coalition. So I think that's just a kind of the difference between the two things.
how did I do here?
Let's see.
I said chapters are one thing, and they're
Yes.
actually many things. But a
Yeah,
coalition is a cross-person, cross-chapter alliance focused on a specific mission with accountable coordination.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think it's something. I think you and I have talked about this. I think it's really the next step for Enable. I think Enable should maintain its current structure with an added layer, but not for everybody. Like, I don't think that the kid in Seattle needs a whole coalition, right? I don't think the one kid in Brazil needs a whole coalition. But when you have these weird things where, like, a hospital in Vietnam has a specific ask of 50 patients, or we met with a nurse in the West Bank who had identified over 300 children in Gaza who needed a limb, or as I said, Peter Odama in Uganda who said, I have almost 400, and there was growing number of people requesting limbs, and you have one centralized organization. We need a place for organizations like that to go and know that I'm not just reaching out to the one high school students in Enable, Florida or something like that. How do you don't, there's no way of them knowing that this person can actually do those things. But if we had something like, and this is, John and I have been talking about this, what if we have chapters, anyone can be a chapter, just the bar for entry is not terribly high, which is good. But one vision would be to have a concept of coalitions that are Enable certified, that we've interviewed you. It's the bar of entry is far higher. You have to have knowledge of how hands are made. You have to have knowledge of the website. You have to have an understanding of organization. You have to have some unlimited labor to some extent, and an organizing mind. And it can't be the person running it can't be a 14-year-old, right?
What?
It can't be a 14-year-old running it on
Can't
the
be
other
a
side.
14-year-old. That's
You
right.
know, I mean, like there has to be some kind of mentorship on the other side. And um, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that the concept of a coalition is something that I think, what if we had an enabled certified Uganda coalition, or enable certified Guatemala coalition, or enable certified whatever a coalition for a specific hospital in Vietnam, right? Like, and we just a few months ago, my kids got off a call with a group. I believe They're on the East Coast. I don't want to say this wrong. It's either New Jersey or New York. It's one of the two. But and they wanted to help hospital in Vietnam, and I didn't know much about it. So we sat on that call and we kind of listened to what they were proposing. They wanted to use Grupo Quao, and the hospital in Vietnam had a lot of great questions. I happen to speak a little Vietnamese, which I think was an advantage, disadvantage, I can't tell. But and then I got off the call and I told my kids, I said, it's a really great thing that these high school students in the East Coast want to do. But I had to admit I was a little bit worried. And not because I don't think they have the desire to help. I think they did it because they have the desire to help. I was a little worried because I said, who is the mentor on the other side who will help them understand the best way to proceed, right? And is this one of those, I'm going to make you two or three hands and we're kind of done? Is this, we're actually going to meet the needs of the hospital over there? And it made me believe that a coalition that is e-NABLE certified would not be enough. This coalition would need to be, I don't want to use the word oversight because that sounds very top down. I want to say more like continued mentorship, right? Continued membership. So we have a central coalition that is e-NABLE certified, run, whatever, and they act as mentors to more rookie coalitions, the less developed coalitions. And then as everybody gets more and more experience, then it ceases to be mentorship and more like sharing. So like the e-NABLE chapter leads meeting, for example, there could be a coalition leads meeting where everybody looks at everybody's spreadsheets, we kind of report progress, and then we report like best practices, and say, hey, you know what, the group require is okay, but it's limited in people who are missing both limbs. You can't use a grip or qual in that setting if you're missing both limbs. Um, is it better to have an elbow actuated joint at hand at that point? And or if somebody will make a better, I mean, the goal is grip or qual should not be the end all be all. There should be something better, right, down the road, right? And maybe we have a coalition sponsored research and development group where we can all share best practices and start making things for each other. And so I think, on the one hand, I love the fact that e-NABLE's unstructured, but I think now that we're hitting these developing nations that have a greater need, I think the next step is having people like John, like Rashad Braid, who I see is very active, people who are very interested in doing something good for the world. Can we build them into multiple coalitions that like to meet frequently and said, hey, I noticed you're having this problem in Vietnam. Well, instead of shipping arms out there, since they have running power, maybe the best thing to do is have someone donate 3D printers and we CAD for them and then we teach them how to CAD. They can do it on their
Right.
own. Now they're no longer need a coalition. They just need a chapter.
Yes.
Right. Right. And that's our current talks right now with West Bank is they have a hospital, they have power, they have a mechanical engineer on the other side, a PhD. And I said, why don't we build you three hands, see what you guys can do with it, see if it's okay, ship it. And then if it looks like we have kind of a good pipeline measurement, all that kind of stuff down the road, I know there are people who would donate 3D printers. I know them personally. And so maybe what we do is we just do the CAD for you on this side, or find somebody to do the CAD for you on this side, and then you print and assemble on the other side, and you find your army volunteers to do that. And that, in some ways, is a lot more sustainable than what we're doing with World Action Fund right now, which is we're shipping seven hands at a high cost to ourselves. But for now, I think that's what we can manage. And
Mhm.
but that's what I'm trying to say. Like the idea would be meeting of coalitions would be saying not every country or place will have the same exact need. Um, and or the same exact resources. So that's
It's,
kind of
it's a breath of fresh air on Quan. I think it's, we've had work groups that have done, made new devices and have had some of that adult coordination.
Mhm.
Um, but frankly, that has dwindled over time as those particular adults have aged or developed into other activities.
For
One of
sure.
the other things that you're bringing to the table right now, though, is that you're well connected with the FIRST robotics community, and they have a disciplinary structure,
Yeah.
a grown-up mentor,
Yeah.
who's typically a genuine engineer with real project management skills, as well as these extraordinary kids with technical skills and sort of a, a personal place-based culture building
Yeah.
um, activity that really sort of builds, you could call it character, it could sort of builds the kind of discipline that we have not had for
Hmm.
a variety of reasons. So I think
Well,
it's a great vision you have as to how to overlay some structure on that. Let me just share with you because
tell me.
maybe when we started talking, or maybe around the same time, I started sort of thinking about Enable the way I think about a lot of things these days is sort of geographically. I mean, imagine you've got the Everglades, if you will,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
great big amorphous collection, region in which water trickles over the surface and there's a lot of life going on, but it's not particularly well organized.
Yeah.
Then you realize it would be really great. This is not a good thing to do to the Everglades, but it's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if we could channel
Yeah.
some of this water to Tampa
Hmm.
and channel some of the water to uh, someplace on the other coast uh, of Florida, all
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And you've still got all of this amorphous and independent flow through the Amazon, but you've now added another layer of channel keeping, which
Hmm.
can focus the efforts. It
Hmm.
allows people to come and go. It allows, plants and animals to proliferate, but you organize it and harness it in such a way that
Yeah.
you get to concentrate some of the activity.
Yeah.
The point is it's a layer of structure and channeling,
Yeah.
which does not do, if you do it right, need not do violence to the underlying ecosystem,
That's what I
but can
think.
actually increase its impact quite a bit.
I think so. I think our current ecosystem is actually very good, and what you and your army of wonderful people have done have created essentially a, I don't want to say a playground, but essentially this open forum, literally an open forum of people who want to help each other, right? People who want to do something with the 3D printer they have in their garage or their work, and people who like to tinker, people who are makers, and I think that's great. But you're right, John. I like the concept of using first. Um, and the reason is, as you said, the best teams are also the ones who have mentors who project manage, mentors who do engineering, actual engineers. And then we actually have an army, unlimited army of student volunteers who are looking to make their mark in the world, partly for college resumes, partly to win awards. But let's be honest, no person has one intention for everything, right? And they also want to help the world, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, I have to my I don't know if my daughter would like me to share this story, but Peter Adama had shared with us a very lovely story, and just the other day, I'm gonna pull it up here. It was very cute, and there's this lovely story. He said this boy, Davin, has been checking on us every week. He leaves 15 kilometers from our office. He says he normally helps his parents to dig in the garden, peeling cassava and potatoes while he's in primary five. I assume that's fifth grade. Luckily, his hand arrived among the 38 hands. He took the courage with his friends to walk to our office. It was raining yesterday. You may not hear him properly, but he was thinking of the donor of his hand. And I posted that on our robotics Slack thing. And my daughter immediately texted me yesterday. He said, I'm literally crying, bro. That was the hand that I made.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's one of those things. We do things for all sorts of reasons, and you realize, and I was telling the kids, we make these hands and we know who they're for in theory, right? But in reality, there is a person on the other side that you just made a big difference to. It's something that took maybe an hour of work on your part with maybe a day of printing and epoxying and curing and things like that, affected that person's whole life.
Right.
And so if we could give that feeling to a lot of our future engineers, a lot of our future thought leaders of the world, right? You're going to have something much better than Enable 20 years from now, right? Right. That would be the goal, right? Or better Enable, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You
So,
know, it reminds me of the story of a couple of guys are walking along the beach. One guy stops, pauses. There's a horseshoe crab that's stuck on its back and struggling to get free.
yeah,
And he
yeah,
turns it over, and the crab then scuttles off into the ocean. And his companion says sarcastically, so big deal. That's one horseshoe crab
right,
among millions in a very big ocean. He says,
right.
yeah, but for the horseshoe crab, it's a very big deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a true statement, and it's an interesting thing, these things that we do, these things that for us is just a few hours of work, but for somebody else is a huge impact.
That's right.
And
That's
uh,
right. And, speaking of your engineering kids, one of the things that it took us a few years to learn is that the impact is often, I would say most often in Enable, the
mhm,
impact is the psychological effects on the user. And,
absolutely.
for most of our recipients,
Hmm.
they are not severely disabled mechanically. If they have one good arm, one good hand, they can do almost everything. And some of them have proven it by managing to do more than
Hmm.
most of us two armors know how to do.
Absolutely.
But having the choice
Hmm.
of wearing your arm or not, and being able to choose not to,
Right.
really changes the way they think about it, especially when they're kids. And
Yep.
being envied by other kids because you've got a superhero hand
Yeah, yeah.
rather than being ridiculed by the other kids.
Right. Right.
I have often thought, but I haven't done the study, that if you looked at pictures of kids before and after they got their arms,
Right.
when they're not wearing the arms,
Right.
um, I've noticed that many kids often will pose for a picture like this, covering up
Yeah.
their missing hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's less true after they've had the device for a while.
Yeah.
They're,
Yeah.
they're no longer embarrassed about their unique characteristic. I think it could even show up in family photos, but it's an interesting psychosocial study that has not been done.
When we have a little time, we'll go ahead and do that, John.
Yeah, yeah,
It's interesting. Even these pictures, I'm just looking at these pictures of young Gavin here, or Davin, and it's true. He's just standing normally. The arm is either up or down, but he's not covering anything. Of course, he's posing for enable pictures, but at the same time, it's still one of those things. He's just
yeah,
standing there. He's pretty happy with his arm. So, um, yeah, it is kind of an interesting concept. You said it before to me, and it struck me. Is It's not about what the arm can do; it's about how it makes you feel.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I do.
Antoine, I want to introduce you to Jonathan Hugavine.
Hello,
Uh,
Jonathan.
I don't know if you've met before. And
Oh,
Jonathan, are you actually with us, or is it just your Zoom and your? There he is. Okay. How are you,
yeah,
John?
I'm here. Sorry I'm a little bit later.
That's all right. Have you met Anquan before?
I think we've talked a little bit months ago when your Enable Uganda stuff was just
There
starting
you
up,
go.
but that was
Yeah.
Right.
months
So
and
I
months
ha
ago.
I have been luring Anquan into the sort of a leadership seat within the amorphous enable system. We actually just had a quite an interesting conversation about his notion that you could overlay a coalition structure, sort of a um, mission-oriented, adult supervised, accountable coordination for
Mhm.
specific tasks on top of the sort of general enable community. And in some ways, now that you mention it, I would say that the team of me and Jonathan and Sarah and uh, Madison have had that same sort of adult supervision
Mhm.
uh, practice. We do meet one way or the other every week or two. We
Mhm.
try to identify our challenges, which is just sort of to keep the Everglades happy, if you will, to keep sort of the ecosystem functioning at
Right.
least its current level.
Right.
Um, and that's sort of the reason Enable has survived is because there have been a few people
Mhm.
before it was just us. It included Jeremy, who was a total workhorse.
Yeah.
And before that, Jen, who was a total workhorse and campaigner.
Hmm.
Uh, and so there's been, and Maria Escuela also has played a role in acting as an adult coordinator.
Yeah.
But it's a really good opportunity now, I think, to get some new people with new ideas about how to do it and to try to overlay that structure on it. So Jonathan's situation, I don't know if you've sort of got Jonathan's picture, but he's the guy who keeps the hub running these
Right.
days. Um, and Jonathan, how would you characterize your activities in that regard? How was it 10 minutes a day? Is it an hour a day? Is it an hour a month?
I would say it's 15 to 30 minutes a day, just checking if anything's new. I kind of have like stuff set up so any new activity gets me a notification so I can kind of go through all the new stuff.
Cool.
If there's someone that needs to be connected or like a technical question, I try to take a lot of that. But yeah,
So there are different mechanisms that we've sort of built into the system. Um, for all of them, the sort of marketing within the Enable community has been spotty. But we have, for example, the badging system, which continues to function, and
Hmm.
people still apply for badges, right,
Right.
Jonathan? It's had
correct.
a heyday period when lots and lots of people were doing it, and when I was trying to sort of map and show all the people, and I did an analysis once, which could be redone, in which, there are some people. It's a guy whose name begins with G. He lives in France. He's got, I think it was like 50 different badges, which means he's done a lot of different things. He clearly had become a badge collector,
Right.
um, and was trying all of the things. It's an interesting example, which I think still has got potential of um, what we have tried to do, which is not build adult supervision, but sort of create pathways,
Hmm.
um, uh, paths through the grasses, if you will, that
Right.
make it easy for people to go the right way.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
those who are interested find the badge system on the hub.
Hmm.
When they join the hub, they get an initial badge for
Hmm.
joining the Enable community.
Hmm.
And then there are all sorts of badges for all sorts of things.
Right.
And Jonathan, what would you guess? Is that system still being actively used by people, or is it now just sort of vestigial?
So I'm actually looking at the requests right now. It looks like we average about 2 to 3 a day.
Whoa,
So a couple a day.
that's not nothing. And are
Mhm.
those all sort of entry level badges, or do they include other things?
A lot of them are definitely new members just starting out. Um, and then quite a few school places starting up a chapter, that kind of thing.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, Ancon, I'm one of the reasons I'm so glad you're here, and in this context, is I want people like Jonathan to get to know you. I want people who actually do view some of these YouTubes
Mhm.
synchronously.
Mhm.
Um, and it's sort of an opportunity to remember some of the things that we've tried and some of the things that may persist. It has, we do have people signing into Enable, signing up for Enable
Mhm.
every week. And, most of them say this is really cool. And most of them, as with most things, move on to other things sooner or later.
Mhm.
That whole life cycle of an Enable volunteer, and, it's not a single life cycle, but that's those series of life histories are really quite interesting and not well mapped. But
Mhm.
one of the things, one of the opportunities one could consider is when you've got a month's worth of new members of Enable to
Mhm.
have an orientation and prep meeting in
Mhm.
which you sort of enculturate them
Mhm.
and you test different models of enculturation in order to see what engages who how.
Yeah.
So because we still have an ongoing stream of new people, it's a
Mhm.
chance to experiment with possible reinventions of the experience
Oh,
with a
that's
new cohort
yeah, yeah, yeah.
every month or so.
Yeah, you could have a couple different pilots. That makes
Yep.
sense.
It would require organization and resolve of a sort, which has not been my want. But it's an interesting opportunity. There's a lot of energy flowing through the ecosystem now to be tapped into.
Yeah.
And I think finding ways of doing it is a nice idea. And I suspect that once we do that, there are going to be some people who say, including some kids, say, I really have an idea for a device. Ideally, there were some people who realize that the social engineering
Hmm.
is in some ways more impactful than the mechanical engineering. And
Right.
this is a great arena for trying to do that.
Right.
Coupling them with someone like you or me or Jonathan or Sarah, who've got a um, sort of a rich understanding of what has worked and what hasn't worked, or what might work, or who's available.
Hmm.
It's a lot to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Jonathan, what we were talking about, I saw you come in. I wasn't sure how much you caught, but one thing I was talking about is the structure of Enable is currently very fantastic for people who want to do good in the world, and don't necessarily know how to do that, right? They have a 3D printer, and they've been making fidget spinners all their lives, and they want to do something more beyond the fidget spinner level of activity. I have a friend who's making transformer parts, things like that. And so it's great. And then and on the other end, you have somebody who needs an arm, and they can just go anywhere in the community and say, hey, I need an above the elbow, or sorry, below the elbow, or I need a below the wrist, and there's somebody who's willing to jump on that. The one part I think um, we could layer on top is what we're talking about is the idea of coalitions. And coalitions, anyone can make a chapter. You just have to, there's the bar for entry for a chapter is not terribly high, and that's intentional and a good idea. But coalitions are very specific. Sometimes what will happen is you'll get somebody from Vietnam or Uganda and say, I have a hospital and I have a need of 200 patients. And they'll go on, and some volunteer on the other side, hey, my chapter can handle that. And what the person doesn't realize, they think Enable, like this hospital in Uganda or whatever, they think Enable is this kind of structured entity. So they think Enable San Jose or something is like, oh, that must be a really great chapter. And what they don't know is that that person's a high school sophomore on the other side, and it's just one person, right? And so now they've been kind of unintentionally hooked up with somebody who doesn't have the resources or project management skills to actually pull off 300 arms. And so, um, one thing that I was proposing, and this is what I've kind of experienced with my 15 high school students, and they can do amazing things. Our little coalition, we've now made 91 limbs for the nation of Uganda in the last 6 months. Um, we churned it at the rate of, when we were very busy making arms, about 7 limbs per week. Now, it wasn't just us, we had other groups making for us. Um, the idea of a coalition would be the idea of an enabled certified coalition would be somebody, they say, we have an interest in being a coalition for your next big country or need, like Vietnam or something. And we interview them, we look at their application, we look, have you made arms? Do you have 3D printers? Do you actually have experience making enable arms? Do you have an army of volunteers? Do you have a project plan, right? Once they are enabled certified, just like you're an enabled certified chapter, there's an enabled coalition. That coalition can consist, it will have one central body, but anybody can be part of that coalition. You can be an enabled NORCON and be a member of this coalition and that coalition. You are just not physically running the coalition. The coalition then will be responsible for trying to understand the need of the country or place they're working with. Not every place has the same need, and then trying to coordinate the chapters and their current army of volunteers to help them put that together. I think that layer of structure for developing nations that have a larger need than, say, Seattle or DC, is probably more necessary, um, only because they have no one on their side to coordinate, if that makes sense. So I talked to a group it wasn't Sierra Leone. I want to say it was in South Africa, and they wanted to get something started. And we talked to them a bunch of times. They said, sure, we can help you get started, but they just could never get it together enough to be able to put it together. What they really needed was a coalition on their side to help them figure it out, to mentor them. And the idea of coalitions wouldn't be just that we certify you and then we're done. We certify, because I was talking to John, I don't know how much made it to this conversation versus the last video, but we were in a phone call with a very nice group. I won't say where they're from, but they're on the East Coast, and they were talking to a hospital in Vietnam, and it was very cool, like this whole thing. And I don't know why I was there. They asked me to show up, so I listened to it. And at the end of the call, I talked to my students. I said, I hope there's a mentor on the other side, because what's going to happen is it's going to make two or three hands, and they'll have a good experience or bad experience, and then they'll be done with it. It'll be done. Like, it won't be a continuing thing, right? It won't be a relationship the way it should be, right? And the idea of coalitions would not be just to certify, interview, and tell people you're a coalition now. The idea would be, just like with chapter leaders meeting, it's continued coalition mentorship. Like, we meet with these coalitions. Let's see, look at your spreadsheets. What are you doing? What are the solutions that you've helped them come up with on the other side? What are your pain points? You're like, oh, the group require was great, Quan, but you know what? Honestly, they like the unlimited out there because they want to look like superheroes. I'm like, great. How can we scale up the unlimited so they can produce at the same rate as a group require or something like that? So um, not every area is going to need the same solution. And so I think continued mentorship to the point where once they're good enough, they don't need mentorship, then it's not mentorship anymore. It's just a meeting of colleagues, like a chapter leads meeting, but we exchange best practices. What do you think? You've been doing this a long time. Is that kind of something that sounds like a horrible idea or the beginnings of a decent one?
Yeah, I think so. The way I look at it, I, again, like you said, came from history of 3D printing. So I'm from the technology side,
Mhm.
made fidget spinners, all the junk that ends up in a landfill, wanted to make a bigger impact with the technology.
So I didn't know I was talking about,
But
yes, I was apparently.
but what I identify is how centric it is to makers. So the
Mhm.
whole e-NABLE community is a community of makers. We show how to make hands. We have open designs, but we're not centric for the recipients.
Right.
So I think what you're saying is the solution to that problem.
Yeah.
Where that's the connection of the actual logistics of
Right.
a place like Uganda, or another great example is in Israel.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's stuff going on over there, and there are people that are in need, but nobody's quite figured out the logistics of actually connecting the
Yep.
community of makers with the recipients.
Absolutely. And I think that would, so you know what it is, Jonathan? It's almost like connecting, not just connecting our makers with the other people, it's connecting our makers with the project managers of the world.
Yeah,
If that
yeah.
makes sense, the people who actually like the logistics side, because most makers they're like, hey, I don't know if I want to deal with the logistics. I just want to make a hand and give it to someone who needs it, right?
Mhm.
And then, but connecting them with somebody who's willing to do logistics on the other side, just like connecting large hospitals or these places that have need, like you said, Israel or Vietnam or whatever, and connecting with e-NABLE who is willing to do the logistics of figuring out how I can connect you to makers, right? So it's a little bit
Mhm.
more organized from this. So I'm glad to hear you say that somebody's been doing it for a while, thinking that it'd be useful. And you could end your month and say, hey, I made a hand for Enable for the Uganda coalition, and I made a hand for the Guatemala coalition. I feel like I did a good thing this week. Right?
That's right.
Exactly.
So, and by the way, that's another tier of badging that we might think about um, creating.
It
Uh,
may be like an Uber badge, like something like I'm a
uh,
coalition, and then I'd love to look at the system you guys have created for the badging. I know it's very good because my one of my kids was like, oh, I got this badge, I got that badge, so so I said
how
okay.
old are your kids, Anquan?
Well, I've got a 23-year-old, a 19-year-old, and then my 15-year-old still in high school. So,
Oh,
and then of course I've got 90 students every year that I consider my foster children. But yeah, no, it's a
and
good.
and just for the record, and on top of that, you are a practicing cardiologist
Yep, I'm an interventional cardiologist. Yeah.
and a department
Medical director. Medical director, yeah.
and a director.
Yeah, I'm the director. Yeah, I was department chair for a couple of years, and then I moved. I don't know if it's really a move up, but it's
Yeah.
more responsibility. Yeah. So.
Right. You know, what Jonathan was saying about sort of maker centric versus recipient centric
Mhm.
is, of course, relevant to the medical profession, right? In the medical profession,
Mhm.
everyone agrees it needs to be all about the patient.
Yeah, it's patient centric. Yeah.
Not so much in Enable. I mean, we all agree that that's sort of what gives it the glow, but I think for many of the people who are attracted there,
Mhm.
um, it's not all about the patient. It's all about using technology for the greater good without really sort of thinking through the pathway to what is the good that's being done.
Mhm.
Also,
Mhm.
even when you're not delivering a hand to a needy person,
Mhm.
you've got bright, motivated people learning skills. I mean, FIRST Robotics, for example, is an example uh, of something where the main point is to create engineers and to inspire them to be really good engineers. What's great about FIRST is that
Mhm.
they have this is still true, isn't it? They have this off-season obligation to
Mhm.
make an actual contribution to society using the skills they're developing. And so
Absolutely.
that's actually a huge reservoir to draw from.
Yep. Yep. And I agree with you. These are all kids who are trying to win an award, and in trying to win an award, you essentially you trick them into being good people. I hate to use the word trick, but you influence
Yeah,
them
that's right. That's right.
to be good people for the universe. And honestly, the concept of coalitions is perfect for a first robotics team because they have built-in membership, an army of volunteers, people who want to do good in the world, and they like to tinker. So, um,
And does FIRST have its own coalitions?
not specifically for this. First is mostly about robots, but I would tell you, it's more than
Yeah,
robots.
let me just point out that's really sort of interesting because FIRST is fundamentally a competition.
Yeah,
And so the chapters, the chapters are, in a sense, all hoping to win against each other.
that's right.
Coalitions could overlay a cooperative framework on that, which might be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and actually, what's interesting and on a higher level, First actually likes teams that incorporate other teams into their outreach initiatives. So there is a little bit. It shows that you're kind of in
Yeah.
First. There's something called gracious professionalism, right? Cooperation is the other word they like to use, and you'll never you don't if you go to a sporting event and most you hear a lot of kind of teams talking the best way is talking smack about each other. Oh, this team or that team. At a first competition, it can happen, but it's hugely frowned upon. And in fact, that team starts to look very badly to other teams, the teams that's saying things like that. And it has to do with the nature of the way the competition is run.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing kind of like organization. I'm a big fan, of course. I've been coaching for 9 years. So
No,
uh,
I am too. I think it's actually one of the most impressive cases of social engineering, successful social engineering on the planet. I really admire it greatly.
so I wrote this to my students, and this is kind of the other day. And this is why I think, when we start, if we start creating coalitions and have them enable sponsored, um, I'm going to put a push out to First to challenge people because there are all sorts of teams that want to do things like this. And this is what I wrote to my students the other day. Outside of winning award, now our overall arching program is called MSET, where the team that's been doing this is a branch, which is Cuttlefish. So outside of trying to win awards, MSET works to using our students' engineering and project management skills to make a true impact on our community and the world. Look around you. Everything seems insurmountable and difficult to fix. If adults can't fix it, who can? And yet, you are the ones we trust to the stewardship of the world to. You mighty few are the brilliant minds that will solve the problems of today and tomorrow. The hands modified and designed by MSET students are now being sought after by developing nations around the world. MSET students are being consulted on how best to run their enabled coalitions in other parts of the world. And with all of that, we must never forget the person on the other side that we're trying to help. The boy in the picture above is not an abstraction or just another limb we are trying to ship. That's a fifth grader who just wanted a chance to look normal amongst his peers and help his parents in the garden. He walked over 9 miles to and from an office every week to see if his arm had arrived. Dr. Patch Adams once said, "You treat a disease and you win and you lose. But you treat a person, I guarantee you'll win no matter what the outcome." For those who have been with MSET for some time, I challenge you to look at the world with the mind of a benevolent engineer. The world is complicated and dark sometimes, and sometimes it seems downright evil. But you are MSET, and there are things that you can and will fix. So that's kind of, I think, the first philosophy in my mind, and I think it's the philosophy of anybody who's joined Enable. I'll be honest with you, including Jonathan, who, again, I 3D printer printing a lot of stuff that goes to a landfill. Still very cool though.
That was a letter you sent to whom?
Oh, my students, yeah, because I just shared them the Davin story of the young child that Peter had sent us about, and I sent it to my students. It's kind of the beginning of the year, so we have some new students, we have some old students, and I wanted to tell them to,
Anquan,
yeah.
you do you and you do things your way, but that was a great letter. And if your group were sharing these conversations within the Enable Hub,
Hmm.
I think they would inspire a lot more people than you're currently reaching.
Oh, well, thank
So,
you.
there are spaces for that purpose. You could create a space for that purpose if you
Mm,
think a different platform is needed. But one of the reasons we're having this conversation, one of the reasons I'm excited about what you're doing is because I want other people to see what you're doing and how you're doing it.
yeah,
It's great.
yeah, absolutely. But no, it's just been really good, and I love to see people like Jonathan and Sarah, and I believe I met Madison before. She's in Able DC, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and I love the amount of time that you guys put into it. I've seen your name on the forum a lot, Jonathan. So thank you for all your help. And Sarah's at all of these things, so it's really great. So it's really great to see, like, it's heartening to see people who want to contribute to the world and contribute a little of their time, even though we all have other lives, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right. Well, the story continues. Anquan, Sarah, and I have been here for an hour and a quarter now, or an
mhm.
hour and a half, because we
Mhm.
were involved in the earlier meeting as well. So I don't mind bringing this to a close since there are no other chapter leaders present, and we've gotten a lot out of Anquan. So
Thank you.
any parting words from anybody?
John, while we're here, can I ask you when you want to have the chapter leaders meeting in October?
October, she says.
We could do it at 12 p.m. after a town hall on October 2nd or October 9th or October 23rd. Do any
All
of
right, give
those
me a
work?
second. Give me a second. I'm checking the calendar. I've got the month of October here, and you're choosing uh, you're saying any Thursday in October?
Um, Tell me which Thursday is best for you.
Okay. Um,
Thursday at noon.
Thursday at noon. Well, here it is, September 4th, a month from now. Looks pretty good for me.
So October 2nd?
That's what I am saying. Anquan, does that happen to work for you also?
It should be okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, you've done it. You've pinned us down.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you,
Jonathan, that's
everyone.
good for you too?
That should be.
Great. Okay, anything else, Sarah?
No,
Right.
not right now, but thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thanks, Sarah.
How about turning off the recording for a second? We'll say goodbye to the studio audience.